Recent events show how quickly everything can change. It feels like we're living in a completely different world from a few weeks ago. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that. And it's completely understandable. We've had what is apparently a stable, fixed structure disappear overnight. And everything that we know and everything that we've become accustomed to is now uncertain. Our daily routines are heavily affected, perhaps our finances are affected, and generally we're unable to do a lot of the things that we're used to. The coronavirus is really, it's going to change everything in more ways than one. And now more than ever, it's really important to look after our mental health and our spiritual health. I'm going to be producing as much as I can around this topic, not exclusively because we hear a lot about it and I don't want to keep repeating the C word over and over again. No one wants that. But what I would like to do is apply a lot of the tools that I know are very effective to this situation, because essentially these tools still remain effective. The external and the current events in the world right now are evoking very familiar primal fears within us. Anxieties, worries, the inability to switch off, basically anything that can affect us anyway. To begin, in this video, what I'm looking at is something that I believe is really important, and that is comparison. Now, I'm going to call this the coronavirus comparison trap, purely because we're in a situation, because it's such a global event and a global unfolding, we've got a whole host of people to compare ourselves to in not only our immediate spheres of influence through friends and family, people that we know directly, but people in entire cities or entire nations, continents, and across the globe. And that means that we're in a position where we can kind of choose where we look, right? We can choose to look at all the people that have it better than us, or all the people that have it a lot worse. As a result, I feel that this can have a lot of different traps that we can fall into. What we would like to try and be able to do in this situation is cultivate a sense of appreciation and gratitude on one hand for what we have, and also to avoid really, I guess, minimizing the impact that this has on our lives, because a lot of us, and I guess a lot of you watching this on, you probably have access to the internet, to a mobile phone, you might be able to work remotely, and myself included, I'm very much in a privileged position, and I'm aware of that. But this in itself is a potential trap where we can minimize the feeling and minimize the difficulty that we're experiencing right now. So to shine a little bit of light on this trap, I've created a diagram which will be displayed magically on the screen now. Basically, I put this together quickly, and it's the idea that with a line like a spectrum of comparison, on one extreme end we have positive comparison, where we look at the situation and we feel like, you know what, compared to other people, I'm doing all right. This situation's okay for me. On the other end of the line, we have negative comparison, where we might look at others and go, it's all right for them, isn't it? They've got it much better than I have. These are all the issues that I have. I might have lost work, or I might be struggling, or even just not being able to move as freely as we're used to due to self-isolation and quarantine. And I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie using these terms. It's very bizarre. But just to zoom in on this diagram, then I've put in different colors, so I don't want to. Maybe we can call it favorable and unfavorable comparison as well, right? But the red words here are quote unquote negative, or we call them unpleasant emotions or feelings or states, and the green are positive or pleasant emotions and feelings or states. And to the best of our ability, the test here is to see if we can cultivate those green, pleasant emotional states, and to really turn what is a very difficult situation into something we can grow and learn from. As you can see in the diagram, in red, for positive comparison, I've put guilt and unworthiness. Now, the reason I've done this is that, look, I know I'm lucky in the grand scheme of things. I'm young, I'm healthy. Like, if I get the virus, if I get coronavirus, like, I'll be okay. I could have it already. I've actually got a slight cough, which let's just skim over that. You know, I don't want to concern myself too much. But ultimately, if we look at others and we can see that we're in a privileged position, we might then start to feel guilty. And this is something that, you know, can happen when we feel like, okay, right, I've got it better than that, but do I really deserve it? And that's why I've also put down unworthiness. If you're in a position now where you're seeing how fortunate you are in your situation, you feel guilt, all this means is there's a slight distortion in the way that you're perceiving your reality, in the way that you're perceiving the blessings that you have. And the really important shift here is to try and shift into gratitude. All of the, let's just call them external phenomena, right, that you can look at and you can use to feel guilty. Like, oh, I've got this and that, oh, I don't know how I feel. Compared to others, I seem to be in a privileged position, right? I can earn money from home and all these kind of things. Making the shift here is to look at it as a form of gratitude. And that comes from a sense of worthiness, you know, like it's okay. Ultimately, life is unjust and unfair in many ways, and there are imbalances. This is a fact of life. But we can use this to say, you know what? Thank you for what I do have, right? And the more that we can cultivate this gratitude for what we do have and the blessings that we have in this situation, then we're better able to serve those who are less fortunate. And this is the key. You know, we're not going to fully serve and fully help and fully support others if we're really caught in our own guilt and our own shame around the privileges that, you know, that we have. Looking at negative comparison then, here I've put minimization in the red. Now, what I mean by this is, we might look and say, all of the, you know, my life is affected in a certain way, and we might really feel the impact of that. And then, when the feelings arise, now it's important that any feelings coming up right now, you feel, okay? Because this is a huge impact on our daily lives. Feel it, don't minimize it. Now, like, using myself as an example, I love going to the gym, right? I love working out. I think probably in the last 10 years, you know, I think the longest I went without going was probably 4 or 5 weeks when I first moved to Berlin. Being faced with just not being able to go is strange. And like, part of me is like, oh no, I can't go to the gym. You know, I feel sad about that. And part of my brain might go, fucking, come on, Ricky. The gym? Like, really, are you concerned about the gym at this time? There are people dying from this virus. This is understandable. And again, it's like linked to being grateful for what we have. But ultimately, when this happens, when this comes up, we're shutting down our feeling. It's not going away. So we might feel like anxiety, we might feel sadness, and we kind of minimize it by going, there are people worse off, there are people worse off. Just because there are people worse off, it doesn't mean that the way that we feel and the impact on our lives is any less. But here's the important caveat. Egoically, emotionally, what this can turn into is self-pity if we allow it, right? So the kind of oscillation here is, oh, I don't have it as badly as others, you know, I'm negatively comparing. I'm now minimizing my situation. But if you go into the other side of that, you can fall into self-pity where you feel like, yeah, things are really bad, like these people have got it so much better than me. Why? You know, this is really unfair. Some people seem to still be able to work if you're unable to work, or people seem to be able to not be bothered by this. They've got the privilege of not being bothered. You might have underlying health issues, etc., etc. And we just want to look at this and to be able to, I guess, just create a self-serving mindset around it. It could also just be the fact that we're kind of comparing, like comparison in this instance, could just be comparing where we're at right now with what our lives used to be. You know, it's just more of a sense of grief and a sense of loss. This is also okay, but it's trying to find the balance. And in green here, I've put acceptance and understanding. Now the reason being, like, there's a lot of, I can see a lot of denial around this, as much as I can see this kind of, and I will talk about the middle way and like a balanced approach. But on one hand, there's kind of an overreaction, a fear, like you might be really stuck in fight or flight and catastrophize and everything. That's like one extreme end. On the other, there's denial, and this is something that can be an issue. Part of looking at what we've lost, of looking at how things are, is to accept the situation and to work on accepting change, not like overnight, but every time that these feelings come up, every time the sense of loss comes up, just to be with it and to really feel into that and accept, like, you know, well, a little quick thing on acceptance. It's not necessarily a direct act. It's the letting go of trying to control or holding on, you know. So like, say with the gym, right? If I'm acceptance in this, if I'm holding on to this idea, I can't train, oh, this is so shit, what am I gonna do? Like, body image issues, you know, it's good for my mental health, like, what am I gonna do? If I hold on to that and I'm grasping to that without accepting the reality, it stops me from coming up with creative solutions, you know. Whereas if you can accept it, you let go, right, well, this is a great time to actually liberate myself because I can't go to the gym. So I need to think of a home workout, for example, or just think of different ways, think of different solutions to the current problem. I've put in understanding as another green element there. And what I mean by that is, again, going back to this idea of comparison, it depends entirely on where we look, right? So if we have the capacity to look at people and say, they've got it better than I have, that means we also have the capacity to look at those who have less than we have. And we can feel, you know, if I might say, like, oh, do you know what? Idris Elba didn't have symptoms and he got a coronavirus test. How unfair is that, right? It's a really poor example. But I can look and I can have this like feeling of, oh, it's a bit unjust, like this person that's privileged compared to me. And then in this moment, use that as a tonic to look at those who could, hypothetically or practically even, look at the position you're in with a similar mindset. And then that allows us to create understanding around their position and the position of others. It fosters connection. And this is important, you know, to also connect to people on both sides of this perspective. But really, it kind of creates togetherness in this, because we're all in, the thing is, we're not all in the same boat. We're all in a global situation. There are a lot of things that are common themes, but some people have unique challenges, okay? But it doesn't mean that our own unique challenge is any less valid or less worthy. Just to close this middle line, right, is where we kind of want to find balance. That's where that's where the work is, right? Because all this is about is work. It gives you something to work on. Try and find balance between these two extremes, and really the key, the kind of anchor to that balance is compassion. Whether we're comparing ourselves to others or whether we're comparing others to ourselves, like however this dynamic is, it's really important to have compassion for everyone on every aspect of this, because there's one thing that is connecting us right now, and that's, you know, collective fear on one hand and collective suffering, but also the kind of love that is possible and the support that is possible in these times of need. So if we can hold on to compassion, and that includes compassion for ourselves when we fall into the kind of red zone and we fall into guilt or unworthiness or minimization or self-pity or frustration or anger, when that happens, have compassion for the situation that we're in, and use it. You know, let's use this opportunity to connect to each other, to serve each other, to help support each other, and consider the ways that we can help those that are less fortunate, you know. Right, that's all for now. As a little exercise, I'd recommend jot this down, potentially, and just look at, like, okay, what are all the things that I have in my life right now that I can be grateful for? Like, look at it as a perspective of what are the things that I can be grateful for. You know, it might be that you actually have toilet roll. Like, that would be a good start. It might be that you can work from home. You know, anyone that can work from home with ease is in a very fortunate position now. So that's a great cause for gratitude, you know. It's something to really, really meditate on and have gratitude for. Equally, you know, you can draw a list for that. Draw a list of the things that you have lost. And remember, it is temporary, but right now you've lost it, and you can have a grieving process. You allow yourself to experience and feel in to that loss without the need for commentary or judgment around it, okay? Feel the loss. Even if part of your mind might go like, this is really superficial, allow it to be superficial, right? You might be, like, I'm just being honest, I was concerned, I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to get my hair cut. And I'm like, really? We're facing a global pandemic right now, and there's part of you that is concerned that you can't get a fucking haircut. Grow up. But this is really important. If it comes into our experience, not to shut this down and to allow it. So, you know, write on that list, I'm potentially losing my regular fresh haircut. Now what am I gonna do? And bring this feeling of curiosity and playfulness into the process as you go through, and just use this. Let's face it, we've got, got a lot more time right now. So it's good to use this for growth. And I really hope that this little diagram and this tool and these exercises will help. As I say, plenty more content to come, but I want to kind of kick things off with what can really be quite an early onset of the kind of reaction to this, which is like, bam, I'm feeling something, but where do I rank in the global hierarchy of how affected I am by the coronavirus? So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to be trying to produce as much video content and written content as possible. So I will be back soon, but stay healthy and look after yourself.